call this meeting open at 6:07. The 560th meeting of the Board of Trustees will come to order. Please rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Secretary Donovan, would you please call the roll for attendance?
Mary Adams.
Present.
Anthony Donaggio. John DeGray.
Present.
Donald Drucker is not here. Jorge Guardian.
Present.
Edward Powers. Present. Farouk Amin.
Present.
And I am here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming and joining us on this delightfully warm day. Today there are several representatives of Chancellor Zimfer here, including the Senior Vice Chancellor for Community Colleges and the Education Pipeline, Johanna Duncan-Portier, who will share with us the Chancellor's views on the status of the presidential search on NCC and related matters. After Vice Chancellor Duncan-Portier has made her presentation, there will be an opportunity for a discussion between her and other members of the Chancellor who are present and the members of the board. Following that discussion, there will be an opportunity for comment from those individuals who have signed up to speak. I will be giving the speakers list. Several of you have made some changes, and I will make those forthcoming. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone here. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for the last meeting we had. I think a great spirit of collegiality. We are all working for the same goals. We are working for the 24,000 students that are the mission of this college. That and for the faculty and for the administration. We are a family, and I want this to move forward. So thank you very much for your attention today. Johanna?
Thank you very much. Let me say that I am joined by my colleague, William Howard, who is counsel at the State University of New York, representing 64 campuses at the State University of New York. First, if I may, I'd just like to say thank you. Thank you very much for agreeing to this meeting and to giving me this time. Each of the persons at this table, as well as the folks in this room, are all very, very busy people, and your choosing to have this special meeting is acknowledged and really appreciated. The reason that I asked for this meeting was because we have something very important in common, which is the future of Nassau Community College. As the chair just mentioned, acting chair, Nassau Community College is the single largest community college in the State University of New York. It's not just 24,000 students. You issue more associate degrees than anyone else in the state of New York, let alone in the United States. This is a very, very important university, and it's a community college that has had some problems for really the last several years. We've heard from you. We've heard the comments and the concerns. So again, why we're here today is that it's about the search process, and it is about the status, as you've just mentioned, Dr. Garden, and the decision that the Chancellor has made, which was endorsed by the SUNY Board of Trustees this week. Before just speaking to that, I just want to say to the trustees, I have the pleasure of working with 300 trustees across the state of New York with the 30 community colleges that we have. Please know that your work is appreciated and really, really very, very important to the State University of New York. Your local governance, your oversight of the college is incredibly important. You're not paid for it. You give of your time because you care about this institution and the students who attend the institution, the outcomes and the importance of the college. The community members and the legislators who are here, who have invested in this college, care deeply about this institution as well. You live here. This is your community. The state is right in your backyard. Very, very important. To the faculty and administration, You're the bedrock of this institution. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I've listened to many of you for the last 2 years. You care deeply, deeply about the quality of instruction, student outcomes, and student success. This institution is your institution, as we consider it ours as well, and you care very deeply about it. You've also spoken about, speaking to the administration and the faculty, you've also spoken about the morale of this institution for the last several years and have expressed the need for a better day at Nassau. We look forward to it as well. And to the students in general, as well as those that are in the room, this is your college. You want the best education you can possibly have, and you deserve nothing less. This is a college that you should be proud of. And I will tell you, earlier today, I was speaking at a valedictorian session. It was for students in Suffolk County, students graduating from high school who were speaking, who were being awarded for valedictorian, some were getting scholarships. And I had some parents who asked me, is Nassau Community College still a college that I would want my son or daughter to go to? And the answer I gave them was a resounding yes. The integrity of this institution is at stake, and that's why this conversation is so important. The purpose of the conversation today and the ones that have preceded it are about the process. I want to say it publicly, I've said it individually to some, but this is not intended to denigrate the integrity of anyone who was involved in the search process. It's about the irregularities in the process. The Chancellor, because of those irregularities, had asked the former chair of the board, Jeffrey Prime, to do a review of the process and to report back to her before proceeding with the search. As a result of his choosing to resign after that direction was given, the Chancellor deduced that it was time for a new search, that we were beyond the point of attempting to review and restart or reboot as the case would be. So at this point, we are clearly at a point where we all agree that the college is very important. We all agree that new leadership is absolutely important, and not only because of the size of the college, but the history of the college with the former president and some of the unfortunate things that occurred. This presidency is absolutely important. So I will say that after that decision was made, and by the way, the Chancellor deciding to have a search started over, or throwing out one search and asking that another be started out again, in other cases, again, not to denigrate the integrity of the individuals involved. I have to say this is not uncommon. This has happened before. We have a very large university system with 64 campuses. I can go into examples, but understand this is not the first time that a search has been requested by the Chancellor to be redone. So following that decision, we received many emails and many letters. I read every single one. In some cases, I read them twice. I had the benefit of reviewing the YouTube video. So I saw the first meeting as well as the comments that were received at the first meeting as well as the second. And the one thing that was overwhelming was the passion that individuals have for this institution and the need to move forward, and to move forward in an expeditious way. There were many different sides of the fence, some people taking one position and others taking the opposite position, but let me just close with two comments that I think are the most compelling. One is as a result of an email, and one was testimony that I heard that was given at one of at the first meeting. The first, I will not read the whole thing, but I am going to read a section of one of the emails that was received from a professor here at Nassau Community College, and I think exemplifies why we really need to move forward, and I'm really hoping that we can work together to do that. One, just going to the end of this email that I received, which was entitled, "Presidential Searches If Possible." And there are many different references to the different things that occurred, again, with the interest of people doing the right thing. Is it possible that things could still have not wound up in the way? And I'll read the first sentence and then the end, because I don't want to get into names. Is it possible to believe that our colleagues on the search committee acted with integrity, morality, and respect for all, and also believe that the search process has turned into one big mess? Yes. Moving down towards the end, after the details are provided, is it possible that the search process has spun out of control, that it has been destructive to Nassau Community College and its faculty and administrators? Yes. We need to stop, step back, take a collective breath, calm down, and start over again, sadder but wiser. We need to stop writing destructive, negative comments about each other. We need to recognize that despite the best efforts of many good people on the search committee, the events and communications of the last few weeks have so damaged the search that nothing possible can come of it. To the members and especially to our colleagues on it, I say thank you. I know you never expected this maelstrom when you agreed to serve. Thank you, Chancellor Zinfer, in giving us a rare second chance. Let's stop thinking backwards. Let's grab the second chance and move forward. Let's get the best president we can for Nassau Community College. And then the other was a comment from one of the students. I know where it is. It's from Kimberly, who testified at the first committee meeting. I'll find her exact words. Oh, here we go. One moment, I don't want to misquote her. Megan, I apologize. Megan Murphy. I don't know if you recall, but Megan Murphy spoke at your first meeting and mentioned that she was not, and I'm paraphrasing now, she said that she wasn't on anyone's side. She was on the college's side. And that she was graduating in 2 weeks, and said that she's hurt that she'll be leaving the college without any positive press about the good things happening at the college. She said she's not for this president or any other president, and has nothing to say about the search committee, but rather she's hoping that the press on Nassau Community College will start to focus on the academics. She mentioned that she's on a sports team. I don't remember if it was soccer or baseball or soccer, something with ball, for which she was very proud, and she said nothing about that, nothing about her good grades, nothing about the things she's doing. So what I'm asking for from you, and I know there are folks who will want to speak, and I'm also prepared to respond to questions, hoping that we don't go backwards. I hope we don't get into the details of what happened, what didn't happen. A decision has been made, and I'm hoping we can work together to move forward in a way that's acceptable to everyone. Thank you.
I want to open it at this time to members of the Board of Trustees if you have any comments for Vice Chancellor.
Good night, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Yes, good. I just wanted to point out, as a point of information, that the State University of New York Board of Trustees did meet earlier this week in a special meeting, and at the conclusion of that meeting did pass a resolution relating to Nassau Community College. And we have passed out copies to the board members here, and I believe there are copies available.
Let me just read that because the rest of the audience doesn't have it. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
No.
This is a memorandum dated May 28, 2013. We'll have copies available. It says to members of the Board of Trustees from H. Carl McCall, Chairman, subject Nassau Community College search process. I recommend that the Board of Trustees adopt the following resolution. Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby supports the recent actions taken by the Chancellor with respect to the presidential search at Nassau Community College, and encourages the Board of Trustees of Nassau Community College to work with the Chancellor and her representative to start a new search process to bring an appropriate final candidate to the Chancellor of this Board. And again, this is the SUNY Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could you briefly explain what the process would be going forward?
So in the event that if there is agreement that the Chancellor's directive will be honored, we will have a new liaison appointed to the committee because we want to start fresh as well. who will go over these guidelines for the selection of a community college president. We did bring copies of those guidelines with you, and it speaks to the representative groups that have to be included on the search. It does not speak to individual people. That choice will be yours. The recommendation in terms of the president, that will be your recommendation. That will not be ours. Ours is referring to the process.
Can't hear you. Hello? Hello? Hello. Okay, my name's Anthony Granaccio. I'm a trustee. You mentioned irregularities. I think what you're talking about is some letters, some emails, and newspaper reports, which are not factual. See, we never had an opportunity to answer them. We were in the process of answering them, the members of the search committee, when we received the second email saying, you know what, we don't want to hear from you. In substance, we don't want to hear from you. There were no irregularities here. From the very get-go, when this committee was formed, this committee, the search committee, was formed by 4 persons who were a committee of the board. One was myself, the second was Jeff Prime, an Afro-American. The third was Farouk Amin, a student, as well as the fact that he was born in Bangladesh and he's proud to be an American now. And the third person was Richard Gutierrez, a Hispanic American. That's sort of like the dream team. We didn't plan it that way. But each of us met, and the paramount thing in our mind was who should be on the search committee. And we were mindful of what Donna Bullock, your person, said about the last search committee a number of times. The last presidential search committee was too large. It was too large and it was not workable. We made a determination that the committee would be representative of the major groups on the campus. And the way the campus groups work is the collegiality, the Senate, the representatives is every subgroup on the campus has representation and has input. Why do we do that? Because there are many, many groups and associations and clubs on this campus. To have put 1 or 2 on and to have excluded the others would have resulted in discontent, rightful discontent, as was expressed 3 or 4 years ago when the search committee was appointed and those groups were ignored. There was no one person who decided who was going to go on this committee. It was the 4 persons I talked about who were diverse, multi-ethnic, multicultural. There's another comment that there was an irregularity, that the SUNY regulations were not strict. Every member of the search committee got the full SUNY regulations, recommendations on the presidential search, and they were discussed at our meetings. I'm going to show that. Your SUNY representative got copies of all of the minutes of the board's meetings. This search committee did everything, even to the point of picking which periodicals the presidential ads would appear in. We got a list of 17. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We got a list of 17 periodicals, and 17 or 20. The search committee pared it down to, I think, 14 or 15. And in one of the emails that you got, we have a list of what those periodicals were. We hit every group, every diverse group, every ethnic group there was to hit. When it came to drawing up the presidential ad, there was no one person, and it wasn't this board that did it. The board had input as to the type of person they wanted as a president. But it was the search committee who wrote the presidential profile and the job description and the rest of the public announcement that went out advertising for the position in these periodicals. It was done painstakingly by the committee in several meetings, emails floating back and forth, correcting sentences, adding a fact, deleting something, and it was done. There's no one person and no small group that controlled the search committee. Everything was done by the search committee, which represents the major entities on campus. No candidate was treated differently. Every candidate was treated alike. This was a job interview. and we took our work very seriously. Among the 3 finalists that were picked, semi-finalists, whatever they're called, all right, each of them complained about the way they were questioned. Each of them thought that the members of the committee were very tough, particularly me. And I was tough, because I didn't want a mistake made like last time. No one was singled out, no one was treated differently. The main questions were written out in advance and were given to each of the candidates. Sub-questions arose by virtue of what was on someone's resume, by virtue of an answer that was given to a main question. That was in normal course. The questions were approved by the search committee, which is a nationally recognized firm that has picked many people that work in the city system, as well as other colleges and universities, as well as other firms. They do some executive search firm. So we had, in the mind of the chancellor and your office, and maybe you, a number of irregularities. We never had a chance to provide you with documents and with an explanation showing that the reports you have are not true. They're not accurate. I don't have the chancellor's emails here, but is there anything particular that's in your mind that wasn't responded to or has to be said? I mean, people worked very hard on this search committee. When I say very, very hard, there was another allegation. Students were not part of the search committee. Well, that's not true. We had the student trustee, who was a member of the search committee, and someone from the Student Government Association, the president. She was present at all meetings. There came a time that we were going to have interview week, what they call airport interviews. And what I did was, because we had a timetable, which your office knows about, which was approved by the search committee, which was filed by to your office, which came back with corrections from your office, all right? And we adjusted to accommodate those suggestions. Well, in order to catch the campus interviews so that there would be people on campus, we had a timetable. So I picked 10 days, and I told the folks on the search committee, 15 people, which was much too large. We tried to keep it at 12, we just couldn't. We said, here's the dates. Let me know what days you're available and what hours you're available on these particular dates. And I got a ton of responses. And I used a grid to come up with available dates. I came up with a Monday, April 29th, a Wednesday, May 1st, and a Thursday, May 2nd. One day there was an availability of 6 hours. Another day there was an availability of 5 hours. I did that based on the responses I got from I made myself available. Jeff Prime made himself available. He cleared the decks. Then unfortunately got thrown on a truck. He missed the last 2 days of interviews. But he was present at every single session before that. The student trustee, who was the president of this, I'm sorry, not the student trustee, the president of the Student Government Association, told me about a month before that she had math classes between 9 and 10:30. And I mentioned it to Jeff Prime, who was then chair. He says, tell Logan she's got to learn to delegate, then give it to somebody else. I told Logan I would try to work with you, but if we're going to have a lot of people to interview, if we're talking about 5 or 6 people to interview, Logan, we can do it. If it's going to be more than that, I don't know how we can do it. So choose someone else, and the board will approve that person to sit on the committee in your place. She told me that she had a math class, and she had exhausted all her cuts, and she couldn't miss the math class because of that. I offered, and she asked me to write a letter to the teacher. I said, no problem. I said, write up something, send it to me, I'll put it on my letter and send it to her. 3 days later, I didn't get the letter, I called her. And I said, Logan, I didn't get a letter from him. Tell you what, give me the guy's name, I'll write to him. About a week or 2 later, because other members of the search committee spoke to her about it, it turned out that it wasn't the cut, she wanted to get an A in the class, and also wanted to sit in the interviews. The search committee decided they would interview 10 people. There was no way in the 3 days that they gave me for their availability that we would have been able to interview 10 people. I have to tell you something, that math teacher subsequently was spoken to. He does not have a cut policy, does not penalize people for missing class. She wanted to do both. Just like so many of us want to do everything we can do, but we just can't. You have to make a decision. She chose not to be present during the interviews, even though she had a right to continue on the committee, and they were all told this. It's just that she couldn't vote on the candidate because then she didn't have the ability to compare. And those rules were set when this first committee, the search committee first met back on January 28th. All the rules of the search committee were shared on January 28th. And they weren't devised by me. They were devised in consultation with the board. And there were common sense rules, basically the same rules that were employed in the last search committee. So, I don't know what the other allegations are. But there were no irregularities, and what I'd like to know is, what is the harm in having the people on the search committee, who are good people, the chair of the academic senate, the president of the NCCFP, the president of the adjunct faculty, the chair of the department chairs, there's 20 or 30 chairs in this college, and they have a chair, a committee, an executive committee, and a chair who represents them. She was on the search committee. All highly independent people. We had, because we have a partner in Nassau County, we had 3 government people on the search committee. A representative from the majority caucus on the county legislature, a representative from the minority caucus on the county legislature, and a representative from the county executive. I think we had the affirmative action officer from the college on the search committee, and someone from the community at large that no one had ever met before. Okay, Jeff Prime came up with that person. There's a committee of 15 very highly independent people. And if you met these people, you would realize you can't give them orders, you can't influence them. You try to influence them, and they'll spit right in your eye. And there were a couple of times where they took things wrong. And there was one session where at the end of the time, I'm going, bye, because they were driving me crazy. Very highly independent people. What happened here was the action of the committee as a committee. All these diverse individuals came to a common agreement about 10 candidates. 7 of them were almost universally rejected. Maybe there was 1 yes vote, the rest were no's. 3 of them received either all yes votes or 1 no and the rest yes votes. And it's remarkable when I think of the people on the committee that that result was the result we got. So I don't know what the irregularities are in the mind of you folks up at SUNY, but there's what's called fundamental due process. It's called fairness. Play fair, when we were kids, we used to say. You always hear the other side. Give the other side an opportunity to say what happened. We haven't had that opportunity, and judgment is being rendered. Now, I have to tell you something. It is true that the statute does say the SUNY board must approve the candidate. And I don't want to go ahead and say laws can be changed. And I don't want to say that there's another way we can go. I'm just saying that there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. We have a process. And it's the feeling, not my feeling, it's my feeling, but I'm not alone. It's the feeling of most of the people who are here, and most of the people on the search committee, that the process is now, we have the candidates, let them be interviewed by the board. Whatever the board does, the board is entitled to do. It can reject them all, it can choose one, it can be blocked. It cannot make a decision. Fine. If they choose one, it goes to SUNY. You people in your own conscience can do what you want, but that's the process. That is the procedure. We're supposed to be a nation of laws, rules, regulations, and procedures. And yes, if we had rigged something and there was some sort of investigation, that was the case. Well, maybe that investigation should take place and they get the candidate. Okay. But at least give people an opportunity to defend themselves. We never had that opportunity. That ain't right. It ain't fair. A 4-year-old kid can tell you that. So, and I don't want to keep on talking because I'm going to start stammering and getting backtracking. I think I've said the trust would have to be said by me, and I am an oral eyewitness. I am a former teacher. I'm a former assistant district attorney in this county. I'm a former board secretary to the judge. I'm being an assistant judge. I'm a former commissioner, deputy commissioner, commissioner of one of the largest departments in this county. I'm a practicing attorney. I don't very lightly take my responsibility. I got this job probably because no one else wanted it, and probably because everybody thought it was a hot seat. And they said it's going to be impossible to get this done because of the schedule that we have. The board wanted somebody to pick on me. And I think your people came out. You all leave right now. And by the way, we didn't exclude her from any meetings. She was present or had the opportunity to be present at every meeting, including that Friday meeting, when the members of the board who were not on the search committee and Jeff Prime were speaking with them about what transpired. Now, Jeff Prime already knew what transpired, except for the last 2 days of interviews, because he was present at every single meeting. I asked him that Friday. I said, Jeff, did anything happen all the times that you were present at these meetings? All the telephone conferences we had, you were present. Was there anything inappropriate, wrong, improper? He says, no. Okay, so now we're really talking about the last 2 days. He says, yes. All right, so let's hear from these people. And they spoke. And when the people got in, there was no question that pure veracity was coming from their lips. They were hurt, they were wounded, they were insulted. And they had a zeal, a desire to explain how this was a clean operation, how the suggestions that it was not clean or not appropriate were untrue. I have a series of emails, by the way, with me right now. On the Friday meeting, she called in, and she said, this is a search committee meeting. I said, well, actually, this is the trustees and Jeff who weren't actually the search committee, met half of them, and the other half of me called in on Tuesday to find out what went on. She said, oh, I don't have to be part of this. She hung up. Okay, that was on the conference call. On the following Tuesday, May 7th, May 10th, maybe whatever it was, she emailed me on a Monday, the day before the meeting, which was at 6 o'clock, and she asked, what time is that meeting? I said, well, I sent you an email. I said, well, it's at 6:30, I think, on Tuesday. She says, another email, well, what's the conference room number? I said, the same number, here it is, blah, blah, blah. I think I'll join in. I said, that's fine. Do you have minutes from Friday's meeting? I said, no, it wasn't that type of meeting. I said, we can have minutes drawn up if you want. I said, but it really wasn't that type of meeting, because it wasn't a search committee meeting. She says, let me check with Albany. That was 45 minutes before the meeting. 35 minutes before the meeting, she said, I will not be part, sent an email, I will not be part of that conference call after all. Thank you. For whatever reason, and I won't say it's my suspicion that she was told not to be part of that conference call, she was not. She did not hear what took place. An hour after the meeting, 7:30 that night, we get the second email from the chancellor saying, oh, it's gone too far. And I had given a series of emails earlier that day to Lee Rydell reporting on what happened at the Friday meeting. And the fact that the trustees who were not part of the search process were extremely impressed and were convinced that the allegations were not true. They had no basis in fact whatsoever. Did she go ahead and share that with someone at SUNY, and did somebody at SUNY go ahead and decide, uh-oh, no more investigations, we don't want to get an answer from them? And that answer would have come within 1 or 2 days after that Tuesday meeting. Does anybody else have anything to say?
May I respond?
Yeah.
So first, thank you, Mr. Camacho. I appreciate very much your comments. and the amount of work that went into the first search. Anyone who's ever been on a search committee knows how much time it takes. It's a deliberative process, it's time consuming, and I have no doubt in my mind, or that of my colleagues, that people took this very seriously and put a lot of work into it. No question. That's one. Two, many of the things that you've mentioned, you have shared, and I have heard it from the voice of other people as well. I'm not kidding when I said I have listened to the tapes which were on YouTube. I watched them twice because I wanted to make sure I had a full understanding of what occurred and what the concerns are of the people that are in this room and the other thousands of people who are not in this room. So I have heard much of what you say, so I understand the concerns. I do. You're asking how was an assessment made in the first place, because this is the first and then the second instance. In the first place, there were some letters, there were some concerns, but we did have a representative at the table. You mentioned Lee Rydell. I intentionally did not have her here because we're looking at moving forward, not the he said, she said, because a decision has been made by the chancellor. She doesn't make those decisions lightly either, and she doesn't make them without information. But I will say to you this, that the review and the due process about which you are referring, that was intended after the first search committee concerns, including those by our representative, who was only a liaison to the committee. Lee Rydell is not a member of the trustees. Lee Rydell was not in a position to direct the search in any way, shape, or form. However, she certainly did provide information on behalf of the chancellor to us. It was at that point that the chancellor asked Jeffrey Prime, as the chair of the board, to do a review/investigation, whatever you say, whichever you want to call it. But then when he resigned, we got beyond that. The search was compromised. It just was. This is, I'm going to coming back to, this is, the search at this point has absolutely been compromised.
Excuse me if I may.
Because Jeff Prime resigned, is that what we're saying here?
What we're saying is that was the end of the investigation.
Well,
when the decision
Can I speak? My name is John DeGrace. I want to thank both of you for coming tonight. We really appreciate your time and all the effort you're putting into this. My name is John DeGrace. I'm a recent trustee. I do have about 35 years of experience in government. I have my own business. One of the things I take pride in is being involved in my community. I feel sometimes that I have a little cloud over my head because I was involved with my local hospital board, and then recently that was taken over by a large hospital. So, you know, I understand what happens in organizations. And one of the things I want to bring up is I've also been an arbitrator for many years, okay? And when we were requested to do an internal investigation, I will say, if anyone wants to basically debate me on this, I brought up the concept of having our own internal investigation, okay? And Mr. Prime did go along with that. Mr. Drucker, Trustee Drucker, was part of that investigation, or fact-finding committee, if you will. I was part of it. I was under the impression Dr. Gardner was going to be part of it, but he could not be. We did have one meeting, okay, and I thought it went very, very well. And unfortunately, Mr. Prime did resign, but I do not understand why that did not continue. I do not think that was something that should have happened. We should have continued our internal investigation, then put forth our recommendations and our facts, then a decision should have been made to I guess, in your eyes or the state SUNY's eyes, to discontinue the search. But we were not given the opportunity, and you asked us to do that. So, quite frankly, I think that was wrong. Thank you.
I believe that you did read everything. I don't know if everything reached you that was being sent, but you got letters and resolutions from the Academic Senate, from the Adjunct Faculty Association, from the Nassau Community College Federation of Teachers, from the Chair of Chairs, from esteemed faculty. I mean, giants on campus.
Mr. Camacho, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
At this point, what do you want to do? We can go down the history of what happened before. I understand it. I really have heard you, and I have heard others. But at this point, today, do we want to go forward, or do we want to revisit a decision that has been made? Because since that time, I really understand how respectful you're attempting to be, and I respect your opinion. But at this point, this has been aired in the press. This has gone well beyond where we were at the first meeting. And so at this juncture, not unlike that of other college searches, the chancellor, which is her full right and authority, looking over all 64 campuses, is to have a new search. So at this point, we're in limbo, because not having a new search, there's not going to be a new president appointed. The chancellor will not make a recommendation to the SUNY Board of Trustees, who is the ultimate authority at this point in terms of endorsing your recommendation. So I really am interested in what would you recommend now?
What I recommend is what the gang out there, what the esteemed community, a collection of people that make up this college, the esteemed associations that make up this campus want, which is we have a lawful process and a lawful procedure. It should go forward. Let the board do the interviews and reject or accept, because that's the function of the board. Accept or reject the candidates as they see fit. If, by some major miracle, the board accepts one candidate, it goes to SUNY. You people
I'm sure you don't need
exercise
to
your
use those
conscience.
choice of words.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm certain that is not a choice of words you intend to use.
What was that?
You people?
Well, you got me now. You got me.
Oh, for God's sake.
Use guys.
SUNY.
SUNY does, the officials of SUNY do what in their conscience they think should be done. The lawful action that they can exercise comes after candidates are presented, not before. I understand the concept that if I get them, I'm going to reject them. Okay. Well, the answer is then reject them when you get them. If you get them. You may not get them. I mean, this isn't me.
I will give you my personal assurance that if we go forward with a new search, every single process will be followed to the letter of the law, and you will have my personal assurance.
It has been.
Ma'am, I thank you for coming. That implies that this process currently is not proper. I am a trustee. My name is Ed Powers. I was also on the Presidential Search Committee. You had mentioned, you said it twice, a decision has been made. What decision exactly is that has been made?
The decision of the Chancellor of the State University of New York has directed that a new search for the President of Nassau Community College be issued. And following that, the SUNY Board of Trustees has endorsed that decision, and you have a copy of the resolution.
Right. Under what force of law or statute does she encourage us to do that, direct us to do that? What is the law? What is the section of the law? What is the statute that says you must suspend your search?
Here's the bottom line. You know, I'm not a lawyer.
Neither am I. That's why I'm asking. You have your lawyer right next to you.
I do have a lawyer here, but
Yes.
here, and again, we have, and I will ask him to respond, but let me just say this. The point that the Chancellor has made is, and I agree with her, is that unless she is confident that right now, and I'm not going back, I honestly, again, I'm trying to be clear that I have heard your concerns. I'm not dismissing them. I'm talking about where we are today. And today, the Chancellor wants a new search. And she's not going to put forth a recommendation until she has confidence that a new search has been executed.
So she's in essence guiding us to perform a new search. Is that what it is? She's guiding us. She's not by force of law telling us you must do it.
I guess it's the end result, that in the event that there is
she's
not,
guiding us.
the end result is that She will not put forth, and I do have her
I understand
memo, which,
the
allow me
end
to say
result.
this.
Yes.
Well, without a license, but it says, this was to the board chair. I'm asking as board chair, this was for Jeffrey Prime at the time, which is where this began, to investigate these allegations and report back to me in a timely manner. I must inform you, and that's the part that's relevant here. I must inform you that I will not recommend any Nassau presidential candidate to the SUNY Board of Trustees until this matter is resolved. Since then, there was a second email asking that there be a new search.
Right, I have both of them in front of me.
Okay.
We were in the middle of doing an investigation that I was happily part of as part of the presidential search. Unfortunately, Chairman Prime resigned the night after the first meeting that we had. But what does that have to do with suspending the investigation or have anything to do with the current search process that Jeff Prime, of his own volition, decided to resign?
I think I've already responded to the question.
No.
I realize I've not to your satisfaction.
Excuse me,
What
just
if
members
she
of the audience,
doesn't recommend
I'm
a
going
candidate?
to
Can he
ask,
still become a
please,
president? That's what they're
please just listen. On the speakers list, you will have your time to come up where everyone will listen. The reason I had this meeting held in public session was because I wanted this conversation out in front of everyone so that everyone could listen and digest. So please, I'm going to ask your indulgence to hold the secondary comments, okay? To let the speakers express their views, whether you're for it or against it, let them speak their mind. I ask you, please.
I would just like to hear one second.
John? I'm sorry, Eddie.
No, but you can go. Go ahead, I'll come back to me. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Powers.
That's okay. That's okay.
Here, grab the microphone.
Maybe it would be beneficial if you could elaborate on why, in the minds of the Chancellor's office, the search has been compromised. Maybe that would help.
Arnie, before you can speak, I have to actually recognize that you're here.
Oh, yeah, let's-
So,
Please let the minutes show that Arnold Drucker arrived at 6:22.
go ahead, Arnie, sorry.
Just to elaborate, I'm Arnold Drucker, by the way, and I am a lawyer. So I'm trained in the law. I'm trained in arguments are made based on facts, and decisions and judgments are reached after the determination of facts. And that's what makes it a democratic process. So when you concluded, when the Chancellor concluded that the search was compromised, in order, and I share in your desire for all of us to move forward. I'd like to move forward, but in order for us to move forward, we have to close the book on the past. And in order to close the book on the past, you have to come to a valid conclusion that's satisfactory to everyone as to why the search was compromised. And when you can do that, and we're all explained how it was compromised, I think we can then move forward.
So again, I respect that completely. We are in public session, and there are some things that I would prefer not to say. There are personnel matters that I would prefer not to say in a public session. However, let me say this, what is public, the Chancellor has written on 2 separate occasions about the irregularities that she's identified. It is not my objective to come here and try to embarrass anyone or point fingers. I really do only want to move forward because that's the only place to go for the good of the institution. But if you want, I can read the letters. The facts are there in the first instance and the second. If you want me to go through them, I shall. I'm just not sure. You all had the letter.
They were allegations, and they were not concluded, they were not factual yet, we weren't given an opportunity to rebut that. That's the hallmark of democracy, to rebut allegations. And none of us were given an opportunity to do that. So to come to an executive fiat that says that the search committee was compromised, I don't think to all the folks here and to members of the trust of the board that that's satisfactory.
Mr. Drucker, let me try it this way, because I'm not a lawyer. And everything you said was very, very impressive, and I would only say that we're not in a court of law. This is the running of an institution, and judgments have to be made. So it isn't, so in every case, it's not necessarily proving a fact. The chancellor does have the authority, and council can give you where it states that, but she does have the authority to reject the recommendations of the search committee or to charge a board of trustees, a local board of trustees, or in our case, if you were to look at Binghamton University, where a search was asked to be redone. It's the SUNY Board of Trustees who have the final recommendation on that. I mean, there are instances where this has happened before. There were reasons that were given. But why I keep coming back to where we are now is since that time, whether this was true or not. You know, the reason I love so much the one, is it possible, is because that person talked about, again, is it possible that people who want to do the right thing we could still have wound up in the same place? Of course. But at the end of the day, since that time, so much has been reported in the press. Someone said about confidentiality. Someone spoke about confidentiality, and I understand that there was a belief that if you're a part of a search process, that once the names of the candidates are out, the confidentiality is no longer in play. It's just not true. Confidentiality is forever. So there is so much that has been in public space that is why me, the Senior Vice Chancellor for the State University of New York, is saying that I think the process has been compromised today, May 30th, which is where we are. And again, as I hear people, and I know everyone has a position, everyone feels the same way about this institution. They love it. They love it, and they want it to go forward. I do too. Yes, I live in Albany, but I grew up in Queens, and I remember when my brother used to deliver papers to the Long Island Press, and I used to go to J.J. Newberry's in what was it, Green Acres? I mean, I know this community, and I know that people care about it. This is not just the college. This is an important institution. And so I'm saying we can go through all of the who did what and who didn't. I believe that there wasn't anyone that had malice, no one. But going forward, we have to handle it.
I agree, but it's just that the fallout from all of that.
I understand.
The fallout from all of that is the damage, the collateral damage and injury to the reputations of the members of the search committee, who are esteemed members of the community in this college. And that's something we as a board are interested in protecting. And for them, and they would like to protect it for themselves. So to pull the plug is basically besmirching the reputation of the search committee.
The only other thing I'd like to say, just for, again, since I'm speaking on my own behalf, I am not for 1 second questioning the integrity of the faculty. I agree that the fallout has been significant, but that is not how I feel. It's not how the chancellor feels. And if you look at the documents that were identified, there was never anything about the integrity of the faculty. It was the integrity of the process. I understand.
That will be resolved.
I understand, which is why the sooner we move forward, I think the better everything will be. Please, Bill, speak.
Well, I just wanted to go ahead and respond to something you said.
Anthony,
You said there were-
Anthony, can I just have the attorney just respond, because there were some questions that were raised.
The question about, yes, let him respond to the question about the,
Okay. We read the law, by the way. Counselor?
Yes.
I think I'm 3 or 4 questions behind, but I'll try and respond to what I recall. And as Johanna said, this is not a court of law or an arbitration or something. This is a process, an administrative process, as part of governing and running a very complex 64-institution system with multiple layers of governance and all of the institutions. And it's reached a point where the chancellor does not have confidence in the process that would lead to bringing forth a candidate to her. She had, as Johanna said, and I'll just say a little bit more, she had both direct and indirect evidence. This was not made just on the basis of media reports. There were letters, emails, as was said, from a lot of people, and there was direct evidence as well. And was of a level that was deemed sufficient by the chancellor to make her decision. It doesn't have to meet the rules of evidence in a court or arbitration. It's a process. And
Can someone turn the music a little bit louder because we can't all hear it?
The other thing I would say, and I do, like Johanna, I understand that the collateral damage, but I think the Chancellor and Johanna and others at SUNY have tried to say it's not about the integrity of any individual involved, it's about the process. And I think it's actually a favor to the candidates and to the process to stop it now and restart. If it gets to the point where there's only a single candidate recommended and put out in public, and then the board, the SUNY board or chancellor were to vote against that person, then it becomes personal. It's about, then at that point, it's about candidates and individuals. It's not about the process. We might at that point say it's still because the chancellor earlier had concerns about the process, but I think that puts people who are candidates at a very high level, in a compromised position, and besmirches their reputation on a very serious and ongoing level.
Can you speak as to the legal authority of the chancellor to suspend?
Can't hear you.
Or can you speak as to the legal authority of the chancellor to order or direct the suspension of the search committee?
The statute says that searches shall be conducted according to guidelines promulgated by the board and the chancellor, and the ultimate authority for the approval is subject to the recommendation of the chancellor and the vote of the board. So it derives from that, and again, the chancellor is saying in advance that she doesn't have confidence in the process, so she would not be prepared to make a recommendation based on this process.
Okay, that's really a stretch. All right, but I wanted to make a couple of comments to something that you said, Pam. One consideration here is that we paid $150,000 for this search, and under the contract, this search firm, if the board rejects all candidates, or if the president is not selected, they have to do up to 3 searches at no additional cost. If we don't go through with our obligations, we have to incur a cost all over again. That's number one. Number two, we have an obligations to the candidates here. One candidate is an interim president at a local college, and she told me a week ago that the board that loved her for 20 years, having found out that she's now being considered, started looking for another interim president. Matter of fact, in today's paper, not that I believe anything in Newsday, but today's paper says that they did find an interim to replace her. We have a young lady, not so young, out in Chicago, young, everybody's young compared to me, out in Chicago, her board fired an administrator when they found out that administrator was looking for a job elsewhere. Called her in, and they said, hope you get the job, yours here, your job here ends in two weeks. This particular lady, who was the president of her college with a PhD in Chicago, went to our chancellor, and the chancellor said, no problem, I understand, okay, fine. And she was under the impression that a selection would be made sometime in June, because that's what our timetable had said. I spoke to her about a week or two ago, and I said, this thing may drag out to September, October. She sucked in her breath, and I worry about her job. I feel an obligation to those people. The other candidate has a job. That person's not going to lose the job. But I feel an obligation to those two people. The other thing is, you talked about confidentiality being breached. There was no breach in confidentiality here. Every candidate was told that when the board makes a decision as to who is going to be recommended to the full board, when the search committee makes a recommendation, who's going to be recommended to the full board, we will immediately start vetting. And the reason is, last time it was not done, and we made a mistake. And every candidate was asked, do you have a problem with that? And every candidate said they didn't have a problem with it. So, confidentiality goes as to the identity of the individual. When an individual says, I was before the screening committee, and I was rejected, and I was maligned, and I was manhandled, and they said dirty things to me, that waives any confidentiality that person has simple common sense and a simple principle of law, okay? So I just want you to know that there was no such breach. And Counselor, God bless you, there is nothing in the statute that gives her the right to suspend any search or to order a new search. She can, at the end of the process, influence the Board of Trustees of SUNY. That's all she can do. But she cannot veto. Now, she may control her board up there. That being the case, they do what they feel they have to do under their oaths of office, and it's the feeling of the community on this campus, not me, those people out there, that we should do what our conscience tells us to do, which is to follow the lawful procedure, and that's been started. We did nothing wrong. We had a right, if somebody had any questions, to ask us questions and to resolve it that way. That wasn't done. It was started. Then the rug was pulled out from under us. The inquiry was going in a way that was not it seems to me, that was not satisfactory to people up in SUNY, and they stopped it.
Research committee. When I was a kid, there was something called a do-over. I think most of us remember that. This is an expensive do-over.
Very.
I have a question. You had mentioned about following the letter of the guidelines if there was a new search. And I think Council just mentioned that too, following the guidelines promulgated by SUNY. So you're referring to the guidelines here?
Yep.
And everything in this has to be followed to the letter. Is that correct? That's what both of you have said.
I think there are multiple sections in that, and it describes within that the level of authority of each one of the sections within those guidelines.
Oh, okay. I refer you to Section 5, Basic Considerations in the Presidential Search Process. At the bottom of the page, V1, Interim Leadership. Often the outgoing president is no longer leading the college during the search period, having moved to another position elsewhere. The Chancellor's representative to the search committee and the SUNY Vice Chancellor for community colleges can assist with recommending, acting, or interim presidents to the College Board of Trustees. Experience has shown that the pressure on trustees and search committee members, real or imagined, can cloud an open search when there is an internal candidate who is at the same time chief executive. Therefore, we recommend that temporary or interim appointees not underlined with emphasis be candidates for the permanent position. So you agree with your guidelines, is that correct?
May I respond? Yeah, this one I want. Because I mean, you're absolutely right that it says recommend. And the reason I wanted to respond to that is there is background on that. When President Astrab left the college, I came down here and met with Jeffrey Prime. And I said to him, there are options. You don't have to have an internal candidate. We could bring in an interim president. And I gave him names. I said, these are your options. You can go with someone who is at the college, and I don't mean to put you in the middle of this, President Saunders, but you know this is true. There are options. You can go with someone at the campus, or you could get someone from the outside. And it is customary for people, I won't say customary. It probably, I don't have the numbers. I was going to say that it's frequently what's done, but often. I can certainly say often. There are interim presidents from the outside. Sullivan Community College. Recently, Bill Mirabito was interim president until a new president was appointed. That's a choice. This board made the choice to offer a recommendation. There is a resolution to that effect. And let me just say that because of the vote of no confidence, and my feeling that the support of the faculty is so important, I did speak with the president of the Faculty Council here at Nassau Community College and asked if there was support for Ken Saunders as acting president, and there was. So it is a recommendation. Your question is a good one. Is it to the letter of the law that they must, you shall? No, it's a recommendation. But it was a recommendation that was not taken in this case.
Right, that answers the first part.
Oh,
Now
okay.
we need to go forward,
Now it's on you.
as you said. So I'll read the last line again, interim leadership. Therefore, we recommend, meaning SUNY, that the temporary or interim appointees, not emphasis underlined, be candidates for the permanent position. Regardless of if we have an acting, interim, whatever we have, you said to the letter of the law, we follow the guidelines if we have a new search. Is that correct?
The answer is the same. It's a recommendation. It's not a requirement.
So these are guidelines, recommendations, just like a decision has been made that we, in fact, the search is no good. That's a recommendation and a guideline also. There's no force of law in that, and we can continue with the search.
Yes. I think we've heard you, we understand the points, and we've been here to listen and to state what the SUNY position is also. So
I appreciate that, and your points were, you're going to follow the guidelines if we do a new search. Follow to the letter of the guidelines. You said it, and Council, you reiterated that.
Mr. Powers.
So if we do that, I'm making a point, Chairman, please, and I'm almost done. That's what we'll do if there is a new search, and we're going to follow it to the letter, since you said that this search was compromised, even though we didn't have a full investigation. And you're indicating in the second email on May 14th, after Chairman Prime resigned on May 11th, that basically because he resigned, the search is no good. And that doesn't make sense to me, but that's your position, and that's fine. But again, we'll follow this if there is a new search. Maybe there will be, maybe there won't be. But we're going to follow it to the letter of the law. Everything in here, the recommendations, the guidelines, and what have you. I appreciate your time.
Do any other members of the board have any other comments?
Yeah. I have a suggestion. We have the veritable giants on campus here. The CSEA is here. A very sweet lady. She's not necessarily an academic giant on campus, but we have the giants on campus here, and all the major organizations here. I'm asking that you stay and listen to them. It's one thing to read a letter. It's another to hear them. And they are very worthy people.
Are there any other comments from any of the members of the board? If not, I'm going to... Mary?
As I sit here, I cringe when I hear what is said about the first search. That was the one before this one. I cringe because so much is said that is not true that went on with that committee. One was it was too large. Well, we didn't have the mess we got today. And the reason we don't have it is because everybody was represented on that committee. And it took that number of people to do it. But that was not the factor at all. My point is that if there's something flawed, then let's clear it up. But let's stop getting all of this negative publicity and everything damaging this college. The only reason I would say, and I was asked by the newspaper, and I said, yes, do it over. That's what I said. But I also said to him, that process needs to be examined. And that doesn't mean it's going to be examined right now, but please tell it like it is. That first test that we had to do with a lot of people going out talking before we could get out of a meeting. And that's confidentiality I'm talking about, and those of us on the committee know who I'm talking about. Okay? Thank you.
Speak to your Donna Bullock. She said it a number of times. The committee was much too large.
But Donna did not have to work with that committee. We did. Those of us, and they're right out here in the audience, and I can ask them to stand up if they would. But I'm not asking them to do that. There were people that's sitting out here now. And I'm not here to defend the first search. I just want the truth told. And it's not being told here. A lot of the things that we're putting on the search, oh, they did this, they did that, it's not true. And I can't sit here and tolerate that when I chaired that committee. Thank you.
I just want to, obviously, I listened and once again, thank you for coming, representing and showing the importance that, and really what's going on here at our college. I just want to say, I want to make a couple of points actually, and one being, what I learned sitting on the board is obviously, once again, making judgment based on information I'm given. A lot of times as a student, I don't know what's going on. I don't have anybody telling me what to do. I'm very independent as to the decisions I make day-to-day basis. So when I said I volunteered to sit on the committee and went through the whole process, and I can assure you as a student, I put the perspective of a student and what's needed for the college and what I have seen on the day-to-day in classes around the campus, using the facilities, talking to the faculties and whatnot. And I, for one, would like to clearly say this, is when we were given the letter from the chancellor, and once again, I'm not trying to go back and forth, but I just want to be heard at this point right now, because I just listen and I just see a lot of things that are not fair. And when I say it's not fair, you talk about fairness and moving forward. This has already happened, and it hasn't come to a point where it's impossible, but it has come to a point because we can't turn back and say why this, why that. Word of mouth, because the truth of the matter is we have received bad media. We have received, this campus is divided, okay? And I can tell you that from a student, between the faculties, students, it's divided because of what's happening here on campus. And it all begun because of question on the process. It's great, you know what? Everyone has a right to ask questions. When you have certain power and authority, you have the right to make decisions based on what you want. However, before you make that decision, you got to look at the facts. You got to look at, if not the facts, hear what is going on. You cannot make a decision. If someone was to give me and say, we got to improve this budget, I will say, no, I want to know what it's for. And I can attest to that because I've done that in the finance committee. So what I feel, to a certain degree, that when a decision was made that nobody's getting recommended on a chancellor's level, I felt for 1 second, hey, at least she gave us the opportunity to respond. I worked closely with the committee, along with the trustees, and one of the things we said, we did decide to do it internally upon the recommendation. And truthfully, every one of the board of trustees agreed on meeting to conduct this investigation. More or less, back and forth or whatnot. Well, everyone that was there at that meeting, with the majority agreement, as far as to conduct that. With that being said, what had happened, obviously we can't go back to, but I just want to say, every point that was made on the Chancellor's letter, we have documents, perhaps piled, to show and to attest to those points as to why we as a committee and as a trustee disagree to a certain level. Now, obviously we can't change anybody's mind, but I just don't understand, at this point, why everyone is saying, going back and forth, really, we should do this, we should do that, but not realizing, see what is really going on. What's really at stake here is our students. That's what's at stake. And clearly nobody's seeing that. And I don't understand why they're not seeing that, because I speak to students and I spoke to parents when they came up to campus. They're worried about the campus. They're like, oh, what's going on? Should I be here next semester? These are the questions I get. And I'm getting these questions because obviously there's decisions that are made at different points, not seeing the facts, not hearing other side of the story. We're only listening. This is how I see it. Decisions are made without viewing both sides and weighting it and seeing what's right and what's wrong, what really took place. But nevertheless, our students here, and for our finance beginning of the year, we approved a budget to go market. I look at it like that. Marketing, it's not going to do anything if we have this sort of publicity hunting us. And it's hunting us every day. Committees, the trustees, suing everybody. It's haunting everybody, especially the students. Our students are worried about the whole process. And it's great that you came here today to listen I was more hoping when I heard you were coming down, and I was like, yes, we really needed this. We really needed a perspective here. We really needed someone to come down and say why, what happened. And truthfully, it seemed like a decision was made, and that was really the message that I'm getting today. Not really to hear what really tested and what really took place. And I'm in no place to question that, but I am in place to say that because of this whole process, and because of everything that has happened, because of the media we have been receiving, it's really taking this college not in a positive direction. And I really hope that we can work together, okay? And instead of just making decisions on their own, come together and make decisions. As board of trustees, yes, we're a local board, and compared to SUNY, we're just maybe drop of water, and that's fine. But even with that, sitting here, we also have decisions that we have to make on a day-to-day basis, and the decision that we have made, it's backed with fact, it's backed with integrity on different levels, and I just want to point out that we really need to move forward, either it being whatever decision is made, not just by SUNY, not just by the board, but together. And I'm not seeing that, and that really worries me for the future of the college. That really worries me about what's in black and white. That really worries me about where we're going to go. But I just really hope, and this will be my last meeting. And, I was supposed to be done 2 meetings, but there's a special meeting coming, so I'm here.
I told you that.
You did. And I really hope that instead of us setting our mind to decisions that we feel is right, really look at what's really going on here, what's really happening at the campus, at the community, to the students, and make that decision. Not what we hear, not what we just think happened.
Any other comments from any other members of the board?
Just say 2 things to you. First of all, thank you. Pardon me? Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I think that they are passionate and they are appreciated, and I do not disagree with you. And I think you may have heard in my opening remarks that I too am worried about the negative press, and was so touched by a student such as yourself who said that they have been at this institution for 2 years and everything has been about the politics associated with a current president or presidential search. So I agree with you 100%. But I just want to say this, which is why I continue to say it's time to move forward. We can revisit until the cows come home. It's time to move forward. But Nassau Community College is not a drop of water to the State University of New York. This is the biggest community college we have, and it's very important. And every single one of the 24,000 students, such as yourself, matter greatly to us. So go, when you do graduate, which I think the graduation has already occurred, and when you become a big mucky muck someday, and perhaps a litigator, know that we look forward to a day when Nassau Community College is once again heralded as one of the best.
John, did you have any other comments? I'm sorry. I just want to double check, is there any other member of the board who wishes to make any other comment at this time?
I am all called out.
Hallelujah, brother. All right. I would like to open the public session. I would just like to ask the audience, please, first of all, thank you so much for keeping this in a collegiate and respectful manner. I'm going to call up for the public speakers list. There were a couple of people who had some additions and stuff, so I'll just ask you to again remind me so I can just adjust the times. Mr. Donnelly, will you keep time? Farron Siminoff? Farron, I know you spoke and told me that there was somebody who was yielding their time to you.
Jim White.
I'm sorry, who's?
Jim White.
Jim White. Okay, Jim? Okay, Farron, you're on.
I'm Dr. Farron Siminoff. I'm a member of the History Department. I'm also the Secretary for the NCCFT. The Chancellor's representative comes here tonight seemingly to offer us an olive branch after weeks of the Chancellor fueling the flames of suspicion and discord on our campus, and through her actions and public comments to Newsday, which apparently the Vice Chancellor who's here said she's not happy about hearing it at all. But of course, there's numerous quotes that the Chancellor gave to Newsday. In the Chancellor's May 14th letter, she says, "I sincerely hope we can work together." She says she now wants to restart the search, and if we but follow her suggestions, it will be a professional and effective search. How can that happen when even in her latest letter of May 14th, she has once again hurled at us unfounded charges? This time she tells us that she has even heard allegations that the full Board of Trustees was not kept up to date on the progress of the search, and that a subset of the board, and I'm quoting, was holding or planning to hold meetings in violation of the open meetings law. I ask, who was the source of that allegation? Clearly, such a charge could only come from individuals within the current administration. Chancellor, please name your source. Present your evidence. You will pardon me if I say that every fiber of my being rebels against this use of unnamed sources to try and convict certain members of our Board of Trustees. And you will excuse me again if I cannot accept the notion that the Chancellor has made a decision regarding the integrity of the individuals who comprise the search committee based, yet again, on anonymous sources, and without being willing to hear results from an investigation she requested, or consider anything at all they said or presented on that matter. Chancellor, please name your source. Present your evidence. It appears that agendas really far beyond my scope of knowledge are at work when the Chancellor, after claiming to be so concerned about the integrity of the search process, goes so far as to announce she will not approve any candidate our board puts forward, yet continues to violate the same SUNY guidelines she holds up to us as so sacrosanct, by again approving and now directing Dr. Saunders continue on as acting president and retain the right to be a candidate. No matter that those same SUNY guidelines recommend this not be done. Chancellor, please respect and follow your SUNY guidelines. Then there's the issue that the Chancellor appears to have accepted the unsubstantiated allegations that bias tainted the actions and decisions of the individuals comprising the search committee. And now we're going to get to that May 7th meeting that you watched twice and felt was just some sort of normal exchange of ideas between people. I know we have a reputation for being very opinionated, but even that meeting was beyond anything we've ever seen here. In Chancellor Ziffer's May 7th email, sent to then Board of Trustee Chair Jeffrey Prime, she asserts that the process was flawed, citing, of course, more unnamed sources and using this as her basis of what can only be described as a bill of particulars of 6 charges against the search committee. First listed, and apparently the most concern to the Chancellor, was a private email sent by Trustee Cornaccio referencing one of our colleagues who's African American as the youngest and very pretty. Well, being a woman of a certain age, I have experienced gender bias in many forms throughout my long career, both as an attorney and an educator. And I know gender bias when I hear it and see it, and this was not intended as gender bias. And now we're going to go to the May 7th meeting. As to the professor who was described as a thug, well, I would never use such words. Instead, I would simply describe him as a bully. His demeanor and words at the April and particularly that May Board of Trustees meetings were chosen to silence and intimidate. After all, the charge of bias and racism, particularly within the academy, can be career-ending. It can render you persona non grata within the institution. It sullies one's reputation, and for the majority of us, our most valued possession is our reputation for integrity, for fairness. The loss of that can't be measured in dollars. So when that professor, backed by a large chorus of supporters, called the members of the search committee, in essence, a lynch mob, with no evidence to back up this scurrilous charge, those few who dared to disagree were jeered, while others remained silent in the face of cheers of approval for that professor's accusations. And I say shame on anybody who applauded or gave signs of approbation. And honestly, shame on me that night for remaining silent in the face of those horrendous charges. I close by stating that unless the Chancellor puts forward credible evidence based on named sources to support her contention that the presidential search was mishandled, our search process must stand. To that end, I say, Chancellor, please respect Nassau Community College's right to home rule, as well as our process of shared governance. Thank you.
Kimberly Reiser. Kimberly, you told me someone had yielded your time. Who was that?
Lynn Bergen, she's raising her hand.
Lynn Bergen? Okay. Thank you, Lynn.
Good evening, Vice Chancellor Duncan Potier and members of the board. My name is Kimberly Reiser. I am a professor of biology and have been a proud member of your faculty for 25 years. I represent the Academic Senate on the Presidential Search Committee. Tonight, yet again, I would like to attest to the integrity of the search process. Although Chancellor Zinfer asked for an investigation on May 7th because of allegations made by members of this campus community, she chose to not wait for the results. By doing so, with one hasty email, with one broad stroke, the Chancellor has painted the committee members and search process as tainted. People at the college and community have charged the committee members with bias and racism. I take those charges seriously. My academic discipline deals with evidence. I received my PhD from NYU Medical School. I disregard hysteria and innuendo and search out provable, documented facts. My reply to the 6 assumptions made by the Chancellor in her letter dated May 7th is to provide the facts. I stand before you with the documents in my hand. I ask that you incorporate this information, the evidence, if you will, into your reasoning when judging the integrity of the search process. And I am talking process because that is what you have referred to, Vice Chancellor. In my hand, I have a meticulously compiled report from the Nassau Community College Presidential Search Committee addressing point by point each of the Chancellor's 6 allegations, providing evidence, including 50 pages of documentation countering each and every claim. The search committee members have done what no one should be forced to do, and that is to spend weeks defending the ethics of the committee members against allegations, the specifics of which the Chancellor chooses to still keep secret. So, where can we possibly go from here as an institution of higher education? I would argue that there's a very simple solution. Allow the search process to proceed, honor the recommendations of the search committee, follow protocol, follow prescribed procedures, follow the process, bring the candidates to campus, interview them, hold town meetings for all the constituents, and carefully consider the recommendations of the constituents. Then make your fact-based decision. If the board does not believe any candidate is equipped to lead the college, then continue the search. When the search committee believes that it has found another 3 candidates to serve as our president, then honor the recommendations of the search committee, follow protocol, make your fact-based decision. If your decision is to send up a candidate to SUNY, do so. Then we would ask the Chancellor to honor the recommendation by the local board and make her fact-based decision. If the Chancellor feels the candidate is not equipped to lead our school, then tell the local board and we continue the search. If the Chancellor believes the candidate's excellent, then she would advance the recommendation to the SUNY board. If the SUNY board concurs with the local board and the Chancellor, then voila, we will have a new president. If the SUNY board does not concur, then we continue the search, and that is the process. All we need to do is follow prescribed procedures. Indeed, if that process was followed, we would have a decision from our board right now about the candidates. Now, I have tried really, really hard to figure this all out, but I cannot imagine the evidence the chancellor had in hand that would have compelled her to ask for an investigation. I cannot imagine the evidence the chancellor had in hand to not wait for the results of the investigation before insisting a new search with a new committee be conducted in which one particular person was named, Acting President Saunders, and that he should be allowed to apply. In closing, the Nassau Community College Presidential Search Committee agrees with one thing the chancellor stated in her May 7th letter, and that is, quote, "The selection of the campus president is one of the most important duties of a local board of trustees. While a representative search committee is formed to screen candidates and conduct interviews, the ultimate responsibility to ensure the process is fair and conducted smoothly is that of the board and its chair. We ask that SUNY respects the local board's responsibilities as articulated in both SUNY Regulations Section 600.1C and New York State Education Law Section 6306, and we ask our board to allow the search for the next president of Nassau Community College to proceed."
Jason Gorman. And Lynn Rossi, you ceded your 3 minutes to Jason, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Board of Trustees. Thank you very much, SUNY representatives, for coming down and listening to this important meeting. I was hoping that I would be able to change some of my speech, but unfortunately I think it stands. I have 5 points to make. Number 1, there is already a process in place by which the 3 trustees who want a new search can get one. They simply do not approve one of the candidates. 6 trustees' votes are needed to move a candidate forward. Therefore, it appears that the 3 trustees are motivated to redo the search so Dr. Saunders can apply again with his experience in the process now giving him an edge. Point number 2. Chancellor Zimpfler has determined that there should be a new search, a new committee that Dr. Saunders must continue as acting president, and that he must also be allowed to reapply. She did this without evidence, without an investigation, and without discussing it with the Board of Trustees. Therefore, it appears she would like to see Dr. Saunders be president as well, since she is willing to defy SUNY guidelines, the ones that were mentioned before, when there is no valid reason why she should not appoint an interim president. You had mentioned going forward, yet when that point was brought up, you went back to what happened in the beginning of the search. I think truly to go forward, we need to revisit that. Point number 3. Some members of the administration of our college have taken an active role in Dr. Saunders' bid for president, and there is obvious financial motive as well as motive for their job security. A small number of people have applauded the accomplishments of Dr. Saunders during the last year, while seldom mentioning what those accomplishments actually are. A small number of people attempted to discredit the 3 resulting candidates when they did not participate in the interviews or have access to applications. A small number of people have attempted to damage the reputation of the search committee members when there is no evidence of wrongdoing, as well as a lack of any official documentation of wrongdoing that was submitted during the process. Most importantly, nearly all of the criticism that has come to a boil has happened only after it was known that Dr. Saunders would not be among the 3 chosen candidates. This is an overwhelming amount of evidence of motive that indicates that all this mess is due to the simple fact that Dr. Saunders was chief executive while also applying. The danger of this, something that SUNY has indicated, has been experienced before and forewarns of. Point number 4. On the other hand, the only motive that the search committee has that they don't want Dr. Saunders to be president by a significant majority of a wide variety of search committee members is because they did not think he presented well. There is no motive or evidence of any wrongdoing. In fact, the evidence in terms of the results of the search and the 3 candidates chosen clearly indicate a lack of motive for any wrongdoing as far as racism or sexism is concerned. If racism is not why Chancellor Zimpler has chosen to recommend that the search procedure be suspended, then what is the reason? Point number 5. Thus we see that Chancellor Zimpler has sided with those who all have motive to influence who is the next president by using means of deception and corruption, instead of first trying to reason with the Board of Trustees. She dictated to them what she singularly thinks should happen. Her basis for this action appears to be communicated in her recent email to the Board of Trustees, and I quote, "While an investigation would be important and essential to ensure full confidence and transparency regarding transpired events, I believe that we have gone past the point where an investigation could validate the current search process with the college and wider community. I would like to ask Chancellor Zimpler what she means by gone past the point and wider community. Yielding to media bias where it can be used as leverage is highly inappropriate. This demonstrates that Chancellor Zimpler may not think her position can stand the test of the wisdom and intellect of others, some of which who have been at this institution 10 times longer than she has been Chancellor. I find her approach to our concerns ethically and intellectually objectionable, and as a faculty member, noting that faculty members stand accused by her, it is personally offensive. I imagine I have some time left. I would like to leave you with a few questions if that's permissible.
40 seconds.
The first one is to the board, and I am hoping that Mary Adams will answer this. If something's wrong, we will correct it. I'd like to know if this includes following the guidelines, specifically that an interim president should be appointed or that Dr. Ken Saunders will not be allowed to apply. I'd also like to re-ask, was it racism that has caused Chancellor Zimpler to suspend the search or ask for that? Also, I'd like to talk about the resolution. I didn't see it, but I did notice on the website that Chancellor Zimpler had suggested the resolution. She did so with an introductory clause that didn't contain any evidence. I had an opportunity to look at your bylaws, that is, of the SUNY trustees.
Jason, your time is done.
Okay. And it says 7 days. I'm done.
I'm
It
sorry.
says 7 days
Jason, hold it.
or with evidence.
Somebody's ceding time to you if you want.
Yeah, Elizabeth Wheeler.
I'm sorry, who's that?
Elizabeth Wheeler.
Elizabeth Wheeler? All right.
Thank you.
Jason, you got 3 more minutes.
The other question was regarding the resolution that was just passed. I noted that Chancellor Zimpler's suggestion of a resolution occurred on May 28th. And by your bylaws, it indicates that it should be presented 1 week before being deliberated on by the Board of Trustees, unless evidence is looked at during that meeting. So I would like to ask, what was the evidence presented at that meeting to arrive at such a swift conclusion? I think most of the other questions I've mentioned, I guess the one that's coming up in my head now is the Chancellor cited, according to you, that it was the resignation of Trustee Prime that precipitated her saying we've gone past the point. What was the assessment in terms of that resignation? What is the evaluation of it in plain English so I understand why that should end a search? Thank you very much for your consideration.
Whatever you wish, Mary.
I asked that I be allowed to respond to that report. Telling you like I told my students, when I stand up, I mean listen. And I mean that now. That remark that you just made, I want to ask, particularly Mary Adams, was racist in my book. And I'm the only one that really has to make that decision, I think. I take that exception to single me out when you got other people here. I take that as an exception. Thank you. No. This is why.
Anthony, thank you for the additional comments, but Jason, yes, do you wish to respond? Okay.
Yes, I'm very sorry that you feel that way. I wanted to explain exactly why I had asked you, because it
You
was...
don't have to.
Well, I prefer to.
I prefer
It was strictly because you had mentioned that if there's a wrong in the search committee, we will right it. That's the only reason. Thank you very much. Your service has been wonderful. I truly feel that.
All right.
Ed Boyden?
Good evening. My name is Ed Boyden. I teach history, and I'm current chair of the Academic Senate. No, I think I should be able to zip through it. One of the things I think we have lost sight of here is that the State University of New York and Nassau Community College are academic institutions, academic communities. And that means, at least it's supposed to mean, that they are governed by a set of shared values and set of shared ideas and set of shared concerns. One of those ideas is, as others have said before me, decisions are supposed to be made on the basis of facts and evidence. Right? The usual way people express that is, these are the facts upon which I base my conclusions. It seems to me that the State University of New York has got it backwards, and they are saying these are the conclusions upon which I base my facts. I think that's a bit of a problem. So it seems to me that the Chancellor's decision to basically order us to abort the search on the basis, as far as I know, of no evidence whatsoever, is a violation of one of the basic principles that's supposed to govern academic life. That is, we are governed by the search, the analysis of facts and evidence in our search for truth. That's the first thing. The other thing is academics are supposed to be governed by a concern for fairness to everybody. And it seems to me that in accepting the allegations of bias and lack of integrity in the search, without, as far as I can tell, any evidence, and without giving the members of the search committee any opportunity at all, and in fact, as far as I'm aware, without even communicating with the members of the search committee an opportunity to defend their integrity, there's another basic violation there of ideas of fairness. Okay? One last point is, we're hearing a lot about process. I don't think it's possible to attack the integrity of the process without attacking the integrity of the search committee. I don't think it's possible to attack the integrity of the search committee without attacking the integrity of the search committee members. And if an attack like that is going to be made, it seems to me to be a matter of simple fairness that they should be given a chance to defend their integrity, which, as far as I can tell, they have not been given. So, that's it. Thank you.
Phil Nicholson, please.
I think that everything that I might have added has already been said, with one exception, that this kind of shameful and disgraceful process that was initiated in Albany is going to go forward, that it will not be forgotten no matter what the outcome, that this kind of smear and innuendo that's been hurled at a search committee, at faculty members, and at sincere and earnest people who have served this institution for a long time is not going to go away. And this is, by the way, a message to the messenger who has brought us Dr. Zimpfer's conclusion, not to Dr. Zimpfer, who should have been here tonight. One of the great things that we learn is that if someone is accusing us of something, we have a right to face our accuser, and we have not had that.
Guardino?
Good evening. I'm an adjunct professor of history, and I've been here since 1965, which means I'm older than 30. And while long service does not necessarily add to credibility. I need to suggest that what was just indicated, challenging the integrity of the process, does challenge the integrity of the committee and the members of it. And I think that's a disgrace. I think that's a shame. I think what should happen is, just as Trustee Cornacchio has suggested, that the names be advanced, people be interviewed. If the board rejects them, they start another search and go for more individuals. If any one of them is accepted, presented to Albany, Albany rejects, start over. But to say that this committee should disband because it's filled with bias and various other unsubstantiated charges and dismissed out of hand and just go away, we'll start over again with a committee that we can trust, because you don't trust this committee, and that's obvious. There's trust, integrity, all those names, all those ideas are being hurled around, and it's really a shame, because these are fine people, and I think they've been just besmirched, and that's very unfortunate. Thank you.
Deborah DeSanto.
Good evening. I'm Deborah DeSanto, President of the NCCFT, an NCC alumni, and a member of the Presidential Search Committee. I was also a member of the first Presidential Search Committee with Dr. Astrad, and Mary Adams was one of my teachers. I'm going to deviate a little bit from what I said, because it's very difficult to sit there and to come here tonight hoping that somebody really would listen. And I'm standing, and I learned well that I hope somebody listens. But your decision seems to have already been made. I was at that quote-unquote investigative session that night, and I got home probably around 9 o'clock, if my memory serves me, only to find out the next day that our legs were basically cut off, and we were ordered, or more or less told, that there would not be any recommendations or follow-through unless we conducted a new search. So I was hoping that someone would really listen. Again, I invited everyone on the Board of Trustees to hear me out. I think most people know me from having been here for a long period of time. And I do want to address Farouk too, because my concern is the students. It's always been the students. I'm a faculty member first and foremost, although I head up the 700 union members. So, only those of us who served on the search committee really know what happened. Only those of us who served on the search committee and who signed confidentiality and who held to that confidentiality have the facts. There are allegations of bias and racism, but where are the facts? I too want to see the facts. All candidates were asked the same questions in the same order by the same person. Follow-up questions deviated depending on the answers to the questions. How can one make a claim that they were treated differently without knowing how others were treated? When I had a question, it was my responsibility, being a member of this committee, to ask follow-up questions if a response needed additional information or clarification. And I, for one, asked some candidates a follow-up question. There were others that I did not ask follow-up questions, and yet others that I asked several follow-up questions. I found the members of this committee to be dedicated and committed, and to say that it is about the process, but we are part of the process, the individuals here, and we didn't have an opportunity for anyone to hear our side of this because of the confidentiality. And I hold very, very strongly to that confidentiality that I signed, and I did not go out and speak about this search. Thus, I stand by the search process. I urge that the search move forward and move to the next step. I'm disappointed and alarmed that this search has brought such turmoil and bad press to our campus. A campus that is recognized for its outstanding faculty and staff, for its academic excellence, and most importantly for its dedication to our students. It's now the time to move forward and honor the process that's in place. I thank you very much, and I hope someone listens. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Evelyn Wertzman-Diluti. As a professor of philosophy here at the college, I consider it heartening that SUNY places such great emphasis on reasoning in its general education guidelines. Critical thinking is an infusion competency that we, the faculty, are directed to weave into all academic disciplines. Lest anyone wonder what such reasoning entails, the SUNY guidelines stipulate that reasoning is grounded in the ability to, and I quote, identify, analyze, and evaluate arguments, end quote. SUNY's message on paper is clear. Mastery of the ability to develop well-reasoned arguments is fundamental to higher education and to participation in our democracy. The guidelines take for granted that there is evidence to be identified, analyzed, and evaluated. Without evidence, there's nothing about which to reason. Without the evaluation of evidence, one simply cannot think critically. That is why I am deeply disturbed that SUNY Chancellor Zimfer first called for an investigation into the allegation of discrimination in the presidential search here at the college, and then abruptly reversed her decision and halted the inquiry without any evaluation of the evidence. Unfortunately, the Chancellor's actions indicate that the general education goal of critical thinking amounts to empty words on paper. We might require our students to master the ability to evaluate evidence and develop well-reasoned arguments. But if we don't hold ourselves to this same standard, our general education guidelines become hypocritical. What good are these stipulations if they don't guide us all in our own decisions and actions? The composition of the Presidential Search Committee at Nassau Community College was vetted by SUNY and monitored at all stages. How can the Chancellor cite any alleged impropriety when the SUNY representative who was involved in the proceedings didn't voice any concerns throughout the process? Tonight we have heard a lot about the process, but a process is carried out by individuals. Consequently, the Chancellor's actions do constitute an assault on the integrity of the members of the search committee, on the autonomy of the college and its Board of Trustees, and on the very general education principle of critical thinking that is the cornerstone of a SUNY education. I call upon Chancellor Zimfer and the entire SUNY Board of Trustees to practice what SUNY preaches and complete the inquiry into the facts so that this Nassau Community College presidential search process may proceed. If we sanction SUNY's decision to ignore the identification, analysis, and evaluation of the evidence, then we make a mockery of general education. Any decision based on innuendo, opinion, and political pressure, rather than well-reasoned arguments, ultimately fails our students. Thank you.
David Stern.
First, I want to really thank the board for having an open meeting. I think this is quite unique, and it also is a good thing about our college that you can certainly see what we have here, right? I'm here to support our college, our community college, and the tradition of shared governance and the board and the independence of our Board of Trustees. I have a major question for the Chancellor. Why do you want to diminish community colleges, especially the best community college in the state? We're not just the largest, we're the best based on the chargebacks, okay? I was going to actually say you were patronizing, but you gave a talk about, which I thought was quite passionate, about the college. So I think you do understand why this college is the best in the state. Now, the Chancellor, this is not the first time that the Chancellor has had a pattern of basically showing disdain for community colleges. And I'm using this opportunity to bring up the seamless transfer issue, okay? This is the biggest threat to our community college. Again, Nassau Community College. We're not a technical school. We're a liberal arts school. This idea of seamless transfer, it's the first time in SUNY's history that they're going to be setting minimum academic standards. Not maximum. We won't be able to have our own standards that go beyond SUNY. No, you're limiting us as far as how many credits we have to give, that's going to decimate many of our departments. Our math, and I'm a science professor, our science department already has been diminished. This is going to diminish it even more when we need more math and science. So again, I really want to know, why is the chancellor so against community colleges? And this whole business with the presidential search is just another example of that. Now, as I was listening, I think there's an easy solution here for the chancellor. It's quite clear, based on the lack of evidence you provided for the chancellor, that she made a mistake. Now, obviously, she didn't have the courage to come here personally. I hope that she would have the courage to admit a mistake and let us move on. I agree. I think we all agree with what you were saying. You came here basically with one statement, which was, let's move on. We can't move on because of what the chancellor has done. She has made a mistake. She needs to admit it, okay? Now, if she admits it, just said, I made a mistake, and let's move on. Now, there could be compromise on the other side. How about we reopen the process? Reopen it to include the existing candidates and search for more. Okay, thank you. And search for more candidates. But I think that can't move ahead unless the chancellor admits she made a mistake here. That's the only way this is going to move forward. Thank you.
Victor Abrabaya.
I think someone's waved their 3 minutes for me.
Do you know who?
I do not.
I'll give you the names, and anybody who wishes to cede may do so. Frank Frisette, I'm sorry. Susan Golson?
I wait my time.
Okay, no problem. 6 minutes, please. Go ahead, Victor.
Good evening. I'm Victor Abrabaya, Chair of the Theater and Dance Department and a member of the Chair's Executive Committee. I am reading this statement on behalf of Lynn Mazzola, who is unable to attend tonight's meeting as she is out of the country on a long-planned trip. Lynn Mazzola is Chair of the Accounting and Business Administration Department, Chair of the Academic Chairs, and a member of the Presidential Search Committee. I quote Lynn, "The Presidential Search Committee is a group of dedicated individuals with the one goal of finding the best candidates for President to recommend to the Board of Trustees. As a group and as individuals, we always conducted ourselves with professionalism, honesty, and integrity, and did so throughout the search process and candidate interviews. On all conference calls and at all meetings, Lee Rydell, the SUNY advisor, was present. Lee Rydell, along with the search firm representative and Board of Trustee members, tallied the final secret votes after we thoroughly discussed the candidates. Lee Rydell then addressed the search committee. Lee told us we did an excellent job in the search process and in finding 3 outstanding candidates from a good pool of candidates. Lee Rydell then discussed the next steps in the process, which were to be the candidates' interviews by the Board of Trustees and the campus visits. Does this sound like a SUNY advisor with concerns with the search process, the candidate interviews, and/or the selection or rejection of the candidates? In fact, knowing that the committee was not recommending the acting president move forward in the process, Lynn, asked Lee Rydell in front of the entire committee what the process would be if the validity of the search and/or the committee was questioned. Lee Rydell was shocked at my question and asked me why I thought such a thing would happen. I responded that certain groups and individuals prior to the interviews had already contacted Carl McCall, the chancellor, and others, and that I assumed that their next step would be to challenge the validity of the search process and possibly the integrity of the committee. Lee Rydell eventually, after more discussion, stated that someone from SUNY would be assigned to look into any questions. As we were leaving that day, Lee Rydell approached me and asked me again if I thought the search process and committee would be questioned. I said yes, given what already happened, and that as we were not moving the acting president forward, some people would not be happy with our decision. Again, Lee Rydell was surprised, but never, and I emphasize never, in either the public or private discussions did Lee Rydell express any concern with the search process, candidate interviews, or the recommendations of the committee. Has Lee Rydell now changed her mind? Did someone change her mind for her? Did the chancellor not ask her own SUNY representative what happened? I don't know the answers to that question. I do know that the committee always conducted itself with professionalism, honesty, and integrity, with the one goal of finding the best candidates to send to the Board of Trustees. I believe it is now time for the Board of Trustees and the Chancellor to allow the process to move forward with campus visits and interviews. Thank you. That's Lee. This is Victor. You spoke about the irregularities. What are the alleged irregularities? Do you have a list? And on what basis did the alleged irregularities become fact? The only irregularities in the process have been by the Chancellor's office and Carl McCall in arriving at a conclusion through a process that most resembles a kangaroo court. Thank you.
I just want to add something. I heard most of the conversation between Ms. Rydell and Lynn Mazzola. And yes, that was what took place.
Frank Crescendo.
Hi, Frank Crescendo. I'm in the Engineering Physics Technology Department. I'm Vice President of the NCCFT. She's the young pretty one. Sexist. He's a thug. Racist. You people up in Albany. Racist. Okay. Question to Mary. Racist. Farron's remarks about the young pretty one. Sexist. A bully rather than a thug. Racist. And what a den of desperation this place has become.
If there is another search, are we to have these alleged racists to serve again on the search committee? Or will they have to be vetted, and will the vetting process be supervised by the Chancellor? You know, it is remarkable how much evidence was presented to the Chancellor and how difficult it was to have her come to NCC when we had our vote of no confidence with Dr. Astrad. And yet, now with nothing but shameless, unsubstantiated accusations, you come with your legal representative. It amazes us.
Joseph Coppolino.
Mr. Chairman, to not be repetitive, I will yield my time to a colleague if the chair will be good enough to hold it in reserve.
I will hold it in reserve for whoever requires.
Thank you, sir.
Florence Budakian.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Florence Budakian. I'm in the English department, and I'm the coordinator of the Human Rights Project. And on a personal note, I'm the white single parent of an African child. So race is part of my everyday life. And having said that, I do want to just put in one word following Frank's. I was actually going to say something similar to what Frank said. I wonder about investigations and where they were last year. And I wonder about who and what and when we are investigating. And I would urge the Board of Trustees to be very, very cautious about who and when they investigate. Because there's obviously a lot of things going on here that are not transparent to the faculty. They have not been made transparent to the faculty, and they should be transparent to the faculty. Because when they were made transparent to the faculty, in terms of Dr. Astrab's reign here, people galvanized and moved, and you know, look at the result. I mean, obviously, it was something that we all pushed for very hard because we were considering the institution and mostly the students. And I ask you, please, in your assessment of this search, think about investigation very carefully. Thank you.
Robert Hodge.
Hi, I'm Professor Robert Hodge from Criminal Justice. I'm here for my time to Denise Moore, the chair of the law.
Okay. Esther Bogan.
Joe, may I have your time?
Yes, chair has it. Esther, you have 6 minutes then, okay?
Hello, I'm Esther Bogan. I'm a full professor in the Department of Communications, and it's very hard for me to sit on my hands listening to this wonderful dialogue this evening, and I mean it seriously. It's I am complimented that we have opened up a dialogue and a conversation. There are a few points that, Vice Chancellor, you made with your legal representation. We do agree that the presidency is a very important component of the heart and soul of any campus, and particularly Nassau Community College. I also agree that process needs to continue and that process needs to be looked at most seriously. I don't know if process runs by itself. When we talk in terms of process, we talk that people run process. And I can't see how we can separate the process from those who ran the process and say that they're two separate issues. So I unfortunately wish that that could be explained to us this evening. I am sad that the allegations that we were told existed influencing the Chancellor's, what I consider a very quick turnaround in decision making, and now the SUNY Board of Trustees supporting that decision making was not clarified. That's very important to me when it comes to effective communication. What I am going to do is tell you why I am driven to make an appeal to you as the Board of Trustees this evening. If I were seated where you're seated, first of all, great difficulty to listen to the kind of division that not only exists in this room, not only from faculty, staff, students, as well as administration, as well as our trustees, and seemingly now campus from the SUNY campuses, we seem to be. I want to, and I'm not going to repeat any of the events that motivated me to make this appeal tonight, but I think I, along with many colleagues, seriously request you, our trustees, to take the lead and somehow make a unified protest to Chancellor Zimfer's sudden turnaround decision, now supported by the SUNY Board of Trustees, to protest this sudden turnaround decision to ensure that it intrudes on the autonomy, not only of our college, but well as on you. Taking it, in sense, as an expression of distrust in your ability to investigate with competence the allegations that question the fairness and legitimacy of the current presidential search. You all now can step up to the plate and gather evidence to support or negate any allegations that Vice Chancellor reported to us were in support of the decision that is coming down from SUNY. I also want to agree and not reiterate the guidelines and recommendations in the guidelines with respect to the that was pointed out in terms of temporary or interim appointees not be candidates for the permanent position. Acting President Saunders did choose not to take this advice. And he also chose to go out of the college community and draw negative attention. Actually, what I believe, Vice Chancellor, you had said negative publicity to Nassau Community College. Sadly, he has also chosen to take a silent position as our leader of this college by making no attempts, either directly or through any appointed representative of the office of the president, to communicate open appeals to bring together this community. Now, such recent actions have escalated divisiveness and do not represent the actions of the kind of leadership that I hope everyone in this room will agree we now need on this campus. We need a president who possesses those important leadership qualities of objective emotional control, of loyalty to the good health, what Megan, the student vice chancellor that you had cited before, called not being hurtful to Nassau Community College. Having visionary wisdom of the impact on the well-being of Nassau Community College of any actions that president takes, even words that president speaks. And also having the ability to build and maintain the gestalt rather than tear it into pieces. Now, I make this appeal only because right now I feel the premature rush to judgment that accuses without gathered evidence the reputation of the search process, and also my colleagues and members of the search committee, threatens our autonomy in terms of our governance and seemingly disrespects your capabilities to act responsibly. I urge you to continue with the presidential search process, which you may make based on recommendations, and to not blindly accept disguised innuendos. I urge you to wisely restore faith in your leadership, which our college needs today, desperately. You could feel it in the room. We desperately need leadership in this room. Thank you.
Charles Loyacano.
I'm Charles Loyacano. I'm the president of the Adjunct Faculty Association. I'm also the president of the Nassau County Coalition of Labor, all the municipal unions. I commend you because the Chancellor gave you a tough charge. And there was too much bobbing and weaving. I am more convinced now, and I'm probably talking for every member of that search committee, that we now have dug in our heels. The worst thing that this college could do is abandon this search and start a new one. I can't help wonder where we would be right now if on May 7th, instead of sending the letter, the Chancellor had sent you to find out if there was anything to these allegations. I can't help but wonder where we would be right now if Ken Saunders had said, "Of course I'm disappointed. I love this college, but I respect the decision of the committee." Perhaps the committee thought that I was too close to Dr. Astrab in those tumultuous days. And maybe the committee thought it was time for a change. That would have been classy. We wouldn't be here right now. Unfortunately, Ken didn't say that. And now we find out that the registration is down 10% for the summer, down 15% for the fall. And we hear from the Rialto that people are saying, "I was going to send my son to Nassau Community College." But that's a hotbed of racism. It's too bad that this all happened. The Chancellor made a mistake. She shot from the hip. And she missed the mark. She probably is going to have a hard time now backing off. But I don't think we're going to back off. If what you alluded to with regard to what she wants, I gathered when the attorney parried one of the questions that the chancellor does not have the authority to mandate a new search. And I guess if she did, if that were in the law, you'd be arguing a 78. But that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So where are we going? I would leave her with this. If she wants to mandate her authority, it's wonderful to have giant's power, but it is tyrannous to use it like a giant.
Phyllis Kurland,
I pass.
Anissa Moore. She has 6 minutes on the clock. Pamela Montgomery, are you yielding your time to Anissa Moore?
Yes.
Okay, she has 9 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to members of the board and also Vice Chancellor Duncan Poitier, my colleagues, and members of the campus community, and also members of the local community. My name is Anissa Moore, and I am a professor in the communications department, but tonight I'm reading on behalf of Alana. I currently serve as the president. Dear NCC Board of Trustees, on behalf of Alana, we once again extend our gratitude to Chancellor Zimfer for her decision to suspend the NCC presidential search. A successful presidential search should be an open, comprehensive search for all qualified applicants. The mission of Alana was to point out the lack of representation on the aforementioned presidential search committee. It was this concern that caused Alana to cry out for justice. Alana was included and given a voice in the prior NCC presidential search committee. For the past 4 months, the African, Latino, Asian, and Native American Faculty and Staff Alliance of Nassau Community College communicated to the NCC Board of Trustees the need for a comprehensive presidential search process that reflects the diverse voices within our institution. In spite of our efforts to work collaboratively as well as cooperatively, our requests were denied. Not only were our requests denied, but we were ignored. Furthermore, our organization has suffered unfair allegations regarding the NCC presidential search. It was alleged that Alana has single-handedly divided the NCC community based on race. Yet our concerns regarding the NCC presidential search were never race-based. We simply communicated our desire to participate within the presidential search process. Alana did react, however, to the private racist, sexist language that became public by Trustee Anthony Cornacchio, to which we requested a definitive response from Trustee Cornacchio as well as the overall board, neither of which took place. Secondly, as an organization, we were concerned with the race-based language contained in 2 AFA Vanguard newsletters. Both articles openly refer to Alana, which is a faculty and staff organization, as a hostile mob, and clearly state the wrong person was lynched. To add insult to injury, Trustee Cornacchio recently encouraged a series of emails generated by the AFA which continue to fuel the divisiveness within the campus community. The AFA has accomplished this divisiveness by their decision to saturate the all NCC emails. Thirdly, it's necessary to point out that Alana never labeled any individuals associated with the search process as racist and or sexist. Alana, as communicated by the all NCC email dated 5/15/13, asked the members of the campus community to separate the presidential search process from the persons involved. As the search progressed, allegations were made regarding the interview process, and our organization once again voiced our concerns. The sole mission of Alana was to address the alleged unfair interview practices, not to endorse any particular candidate. As communicated from the very beginning, Alana seeks an inclusive, comprehensive search process to select the best candidate to serve as our president. Alana recognizes and values the presidential search process as outlined within SUNY guidelines. As we look ahead, we recognize it is necessary to uphold the ideals of shared governance at our great institution to achieve this desired outcome. The Alana faculty never viewed themselves as a separate entity from the established governance body. We never communicated our desire to dismantle the very structure that has empowered us to serve as educators. Thus, based on the decision that's rendered tonight, the power and privileges associated within the ideals of shared governance should not be lost to obtain this desired outcome. Lastly, in an all-NCC email dated 5/15/13, Alana issued a statement denouncing any uncivil actions expressed against any member of the NCC community. This includes the high-tech lynching comment made by a member of the community. It is important to explain that these painful words were used to characterize an emotion, only an emotion, painfully experienced by people of color navigating the waters of this post-slavery country which still upholds double standards. These emotionally charged and offensive words, as well as the divisive rhetoric that has been used across the campus via all NCC emails, suggest that there is much work to be done as a college community. In the same email dated 5/15/13, I requested a town hall meeting to address these deep-seated issues that have come to the surface. And to my utter dismay, only 3 faculty members affirmed the email. Only 3. As we move forward as an institution, it is critical that we discuss these issues and seek to bring about healing. However, this work requires institutional commitment from the NCC Board of Trustees, the college president, as well as the entire leadership in collaboration with the local community. We also hope that SUNY will support us in this effort. We firmly believe that your decision will ultimately ensure that a fair, equitable, and comprehensive search process can be achieved. We look forward to a new presidential search that will secure the best candidate to lead NCC. Respectfully submitted, Alana Anissa D. Moore, President. Thank you for listening.
Trustee Gordon, can I unpass?
I'm sorry, you are?
Phyllis Caroline.
Phyllis? You may unpass. I had to refer to my notes.
My name is Phyllis Caroline. I'm a professor in the Student Personnel Services Department. I take courage in speaking from my colleague, Anissa Moore, who has stood for civility and for respect and for equality on this campus for as long as she's been here. This started with an email from one of the trustees here. He may not be a racist and a sexist. I would not suggest that he is. I don't know him. I'm assuming he's not. But his language was. And it disturbs me greatly that no one on the Board of Trustees has said that. And it disturbs me to hear my distinguished colleagues in the faculty who always exercise good judgment and who can be counted on, always, to say the right thing and be on the right side when it comes to affirmative action issues, that they not only are not recognizing that that language was offensive, but that they are defending that. And it is my fondest hope that when things die down, I don't know how long that will take, that they and we will be able to repair some of the damage that I think has been done to racial relationships on this campus. I know as a member of the Affirmative Action Committee of this campus, I'm going to bring this up, and I'm sure that this will be a heavy topic of conversation for our committee in the fall. And now I would like to yield the rest of my time to Kimberly Reiser, if that's okay with you.
Kimberly, you have a minute and a half.
Okay. First of all, I would like to respond to Phyllis's comment, and that is to say that the Academic Senate put forward a statement to the entire college community, reminding them of the process and the procedures that we have in place when there are issues of bias and discrimination. I would also like to respond to Professor Moore's comments and ask you to refer to appendices D, E, F, G, H, I, and L in the documents that I have provided, which address many of the issues to which Alana claims. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
This is the last time I will have the opportunity to say this.
We can hear him.
Oh. Hello? Yeah. Hello, saying as the last time I'll have this opportunity to voice the situation as we heard. Vice Chancellor, once again, thank you for coming, and the community and the trustees. It shouldn't be so hard to see where we stand as a community together. It's not too difficult. I mean, I can see it from sitting here, not thinking and knowing anything. I can already see the divide that we have on campus, just from listening to the speakers. That's the first thing. Second thing I would like to say is, given what has happened, and we had a search, and in my opinion, regardless of what anything say, it was successful, and I would say go for it, go continue with it. Regardless of that, and we had a hard time having, at first when we launched the search, there was difficulty getting candidates, and little by little we had the candidates come in. And it was a success as far as the turnaround of the candidates that we received applying for the position. What seems very interesting to me is, with the economy that we're in right now, and a hard time being in a deficit, we're requested to spend more money, that's first. Second, we're requested to start a new search. Who, in their sane mind, as a student, and I'm saying this with my experience, who in their sane mind would apply for a position at Nassau Community College with everything that we have been receiving? I mean, it's really interesting just to look at this from outside, just to look at it from outside. We have very educated, smart faculty and leaders on campus, and you know what, quite frankly, some of them are very qualified to run this institution. I can personally say they haven't applied for the position with everything that had been going on here on campus. Who's going to apply now? We're going to spend another $100,000? Okay, great. You know what? Board of Trustees can find. We can cut some things down. We can figure things out. We will invest the money to start a new search. But what result are we going to get out of that? I mean, really, look at the reality of the matter. We're asked to spend money. Okay, if it's reasonable, if it makes sense, why not? The three candidates that we have, diverse and qualified in our eyes in some way. Once again, it was the committee. There's a process that goes in. The whole Board of Trustees will be able to make the same judgment. So is the SUNY, and so is the Chancellor. Where are we going to go? So if we start a new search, we spend $100,000, nobody applies, what are we going to do then? Where do we stand? At least we have some candidates now. And, I didn't know one of them was losing their job. That's awesome, right? Because we, standing here as a trustee, standing our grounds and stood for the community, stood for the college, for the student, we have picked the people. Now that we have, oh, wait a second, because someone's preference is not there, the whole thing is dismantled. And it's just unbelievable, I would like to say, whatever we decide, if the SUNY decide not to approve the candidates that we have as of right now, hoping that the whole process continues, I would like everyone to apply for the president position, because it's a great college and it's a great community, and we need you. We need you to bring this together, because you know what? It's not going together now because we have a process. It's not happening. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Many of you have suggested that the board do this, the board do that. Well, people on the board have been trying to do something about this. My suggestion is you go to the legislative oversight committees. You have, I think, 4 New York State senators who are in the Nassau-Suffolk region. They're on the Senate Committee on Higher Education. You have the Assembly Committee on Higher Education. Any one of those committees can start an investigation here and have the Chancellor and her people in. And why did you make this? Why did you send these emails out? And then maybe we can see the truth of the given situation. And maybe there's a need for a legislative change, but we can't do it. You folks, as citizens, as taxpayers, as constituents, can do it. You get a hold of your senators and your assemblymen and say, what's happening here is wrong. It's an insult to the integrity of Nassau Community College and the people who make it what it is today, and we want something done about it. Even if it means that we change this oversight by SUNY, even if it means that the SUNY trustees no longer have the right to approve or reject a president. And that's my suggestion to you. I can't do it myself. Yeah, I know a couple of guys I can call, but when I call, I like to call for favors that put money in my pocket. And there's more of you than there are of me.
Are there any other comments from members of the Board of Trustees?
Yes, go ahead. I want to thank you for coming once again, but it was mentioned that registration for summer and for the fall is way down. We project 1% drop in the FTE, and we have double-digit numbers here, which has major ramifications for our budget, which we haven't passed yet. So I would suggest that we move forward with the search, not have a new search, not have innuendo in the press, and then using that to impugn the integrity of the members, including myself, of the Presidential Search Committee. Because right now, there are people holding back in my community from having their kids come here. Kids that go to Northwestern and otherwhere, and they have to take courses in the summer, and they normally come here. They're not coming here. And the fall numbers are worse, which means when we look at the budget, as we will shortly once again, there may have to be major cuts. Why? Because we have one side of this process, one side of the story in the newspaper that is making people nervous about what's going on here. And I graduated here 30 years ago and got an outstanding education, went on to other institutions, and every credit, 73 credits, carried over. But I will say to you, to the Chancellor, she has no authority to stop this search. Stop with this stuff in the Newsday and other places and emails on the day that we were talking about this. 2 hours before we had the meeting, an email shows up with unsubstantiated impugning of the integrity of people on the committee. You can't separate the process from the people on the committee. Elected officials from both sides of the aisle, a person that is now running for a spot in the legislature that votes on our budget. So I say right now, the Chancellor, with her guidelines or what have you, is jeopardizing the budget of this college, where we will have to make drastic cuts because people will not register to come here. And that's not something 2 years from now, or when another search takes 8 months or a year. That's happening right now in the summer and in the fall coming up. So I suggest to the Chancellor to get all the facts. Come and talk to us. My fellow Presidential Search Committee members, 1, 2, there are several in the audience here, and they can speak for themselves, but I can vouch for them. They are persons of the highest integrity and took this seriously and came to this process with an open mind. And now we have the Chancellor that has shut her mind to even talking to us. And I find that strange. I find that odd. So please, for the sake of the college and the sake of the $213 million budget here, we need to move forward with the presidential process. Thank you.
Anyone else, members of the Board of Trustees? Any other comments?
And we do thank you. Really, I think. If I were your boss, I would not send people down to make this. And I don't expect you to say anything.
So said the line to the Christian.
Religious bodies, be careful. Yeah, watch your mouth, George. Yeah, go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I have a letter.
No, we're done. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, I first of all would like to thank the audience for participating in an open discussion tonight. I thank you for your attention and your cordiality. I appreciate it very much, as do the members of the board. I'd like to thank the Vice Chancellor. I'd like to thank the Vice Chancellor and the attorney who came with her into a very difficult situation, and appreciate her taking the time to be here and listen to all the members of the faculty and all the members of the board. At this time, the next Finance and Capital meeting scheduled for Tuesday, June 18th, 2013 at 5 p.m. followed by the full board meeting. The board will open a public session at 6:30 and resume public session at approximately 8 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Do I have a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Any abstentions? Nay. We're done.